Welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast, where we have conversations with guests about their life, loss, grief, and of course, grief dreams, which can be dreams of the deceased. If you want to know more about the topic and your host, please visit the website griefdreams.ca. To support the podcast, please go ahead and rate it. For additional ways to support the show, please see the episode show notes. Before I move on with the show, I would like to give a territory acknowledgement. Long before Canada was formed, the Stalo people were the original land stewards, and they have lived here since time immemorial. They continue to live in the unceded Stalo territory known to settlers as the Fraser Valley and Lower Fraser Canyon of British Columbia. I recognize and honor the contribution that Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make to our community and the topic of grief dreams. All right, welcome to the Grief Dreams podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. So today on the podcast, we have Julie Premo. As a operations manager at ARCH Hospice, she is responsible for operations, human resources, fundraising, training, and continuing education. She's a passionate Healing Arts Practitioner, Reiki teacher, and yoga instructor, owning a local business, Infinite Healing Hearts. She also practices dental hygiene part-time and owns an independent dental hygiene practice. So thank you, Julie, for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. I'm really happy to be here today.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we met. We met way back a few years prior. I think I was just finishing up my PhD at that time at a death conference. And so here we are again to be able to chat a little bit more about grief dreams.
Yeah, I thought of you right away. My unfortunate happening is that my mom did pass in 2024, and I did have the coolest experience with a grief dream. And I did know I wanted to reach out to you, but I think in the midst of that grief and bereavement, this is the perfect time. And there's a lot of serendipity into today being Father's Day and my story related to my mother's death, my grief dreams, and our first meeting at that death symposium way back in 2018.
Yeah, it's amazing like where life takes us. And so you never know when you're going to have one of these moments where you're going to have your own dream or your own loss that may be meaningful. So I was really happy when you reached out, and I'm really excited to hear this dream and this story that it seemed to be very important for you in your own process of healing, and it seems to be important for others too. So I guess let's first start off with just working at a hospice. I always like to sort of ask just a personal question on people who work in this field. Like, what has working in the field really taught you about grief and bereavement?
You know what? It's so interesting because my first loss was very young. I was only 5. And I won't talk too much about it because it's a really sad story. I was just in kindergarten. I lost a classmate tragically, and I was really close with her. So there seems to be a pattern, I would say, in hospice workers where we've had maybe a non-ideal loss. And somehow through that process, I think we become very sensitive to what it feels like and to hold that space for another person because we have that empathy and that compassion. And that was my first one. And one of my good friends all through high school, very similar story. I was very close with my grandfather. I always really loved older people. And he died when I was 19, and my great-grandmother lived to be 100. So I've kind of just always had a soft spot for A, seniors, and B, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's almost like when you look back at life, all of those things happened for me. I didn't have it wasn't a victimhood. It was like they taught me to hold space for other people in a loving and compassionate way. And I always say in hospice, we're called to do it. Maybe it's a higher purpose. And the rewarding part of that is there's never a day that I don't enjoy going and walking alongside someone with their grief.
That's so beautiful that you could take that meaning from those different losses to be able to just be in the space of others in their suffering. A lot of people are afraid of that. And so we just need more people to be able to sit with people as they're going through such a difficult time. So that's really amazing that you're able to do that. And so can we talk about your mom? So who is your mom to you?
So it's really hard not to get teary-eyed about my mom. So my mom was diagnosed actually very shortly after we met. She did have cancer, and she lived with cancer for 6 years. So adding the math up, it sounds like she would have probably been diagnosed around that 2018 point. My mom was like such a good mom. Like I joke that I won like the mom lottery. She was a stay-at-home mom, but she was very funny, very outgoing, and very, very loving. So the first dream that came out of it was 3 months before my mom's death. I had a very, very vivid dream. And in the dream, my mom was still alive. and she came to me and she said, I only have 3 months to live. So it's one of those things. Do you sit on it? Do you tell anyone? What do you do? So I told my mom that I had this dream that she only had 3 months to live. And she's like, Julie, that's sad. That's like a horrible story and a horrible dream. And I'm like, I know, but like it happened. And I wanted to tell you, she did die exactly 3 months, like from that initial dream. And I think like with me, with my mom, I kept saying to her, please stop treatment. Like, I don't want you to have any more chemo or radiation, being someone who works in a hospice. But she was like, no, like I'm only 72. I want to live my life. I want to stay in treatment. So really honoring that choice of hers that probably increased her suffering and maybe even shortened her lifespan in those last 3 months. I think what end of life does is you navigate some very big ethical dilemmas. And the one thing about hospice for me is I always say, even if I won the lottery and I chose never to work there again, I have this skill. I have my end of life doula training, but 10 years of hospice work, you learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about life. So I was able to hold such great space for my mom. And although I was sad, I was really able to remove myself and let her have her own story, which I think is really, really important. So that was my first grief dream. And then I had several more, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more. I don't want to give away the suspense of this story.
No,
so that one alone is pretty huge.
Did you, like in your relationship with your mom, did you guys ever just talk about dreams regularly? Or is this like one of the first times that you're like, because it was so significant to her and that it's like for telling a time frame of her loss, is that kind of what sparked it?
No. So to explain, I am a healing arts practitioner. So that already makes me a strange weirdo in the room, a little bit of a unicorn. So growing up as a deeply empathic child, I would come home with these stories and my mom just played the game. My mom was also very clairvoyant. So we were always kind of poking fun at each other, like in that family of like, oh, here's crazy Julie again. Or like my mom would be like, I had this dream. I know it's going to come true. So like, I think when you have that lineage of maybe a healer archetype, you learn to just make fun of yourself because it's not really normal, but it was very normalized with my mom and myself.
Well, even I think just the value of dreams to just open up, and if she's having them, sharing them, because not everyone has that. So I think that allows just people to be a little bit more free with try to understand their own dream language, understand that there's importance in dreams. And so that's amazing that she even provided that space for you to be able to look at dreams in that certain light.
Yeah. As an example, my son, yesterday, he said, oh, wow, I had the first dream I remembered in the longest time. And I'm like, tell me about the dream. So yeah, I would share that growing up, we talked about our dreams every morning when we woke up. They were important. They had value. There was no doubt.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was normal. Maybe that. Okay. Yes, that's what I'm sharing. I grew up with a mom who got to hold a lot of space for me to grow up feeling very loved and nurtured and supported. Because in society, sometimes like for me to have conversations like this, I know that it could be like this person's like not thinking the same way as me. But growing up in that with having a mom supporting that, it meant a lot to me.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, for me growing up, that was never the case. Like I had a lot of nightmares, and the way my family looked at nightmares was that it was the devil that was attacking me. And so I never had any kind of wisdom or conversations around dreams in a positive light. So that's why when you're saying that, I'm like, it's not my world at all. But, we got to a similar spot, just because of life can do that. But that's we had totally different upbringings.
Yeah. So if I had a nightmare, we'd be diving into it. We'd be analyzing it. Okay, so here's a true story. I've never really told anyone. I stole a dream analogy book in grade 8 from my library. So why didn't I check it out? Why did I steal it? And I kept it. That's pretty telling.
That's interesting they even had the dream book.
I stole it when I was 13, 100%. So yeah, if you said to me, hey, Julie, like I'm a dental hygienist, so it's funny because patients will say, I had a dream about this. And I'd be like, oh, that's what that means. So I love the study of dreams and what they mean. And I was always pulling out my book to understand because there was a lot of research into that.
But like the issue with those books though is that like those books aren't based on research. Like so those books.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So like I think I know they make it because people buy it just because there's such lack of knowledge out there. But everyone has their own dream language, and like so whoever the author is would have wrote their own language in there, not yours. But I think it's amazing that you had that interest. I think that's what that represents more than anything is that you had a deep longing to learn more.
Yeah.
And then so after your mom said, she's going to continue the chemo and then she was close to that 3 month mark, were you really worried about when that time frame was coming? Because you had that dream, right? So were you really like counting down the days,
Well,
thinking
I
that it's
think
real?
the beauty of hospice too is like tragic sudden loss. You don't always get a chance to get your ducks in a row. I had 6 years of knowing my mom was going to pass. I spent every Sunday with her. I didn't leave anything unsaid. I can share things that are terribly sad and very personal that I think would have impact. So as my mom was declining, I felt like I took over that role in the family of like getting my dad prepared, getting my brother prepared, getting my kids prepared, which had already happened. But like I found, especially like with my brother, it sounds horrible, but I said, we're like one step away from the shit hitting the fan, meaning you end up in a hospital, you don't get to go home. So when that time came around, I was having conversations with my mom about coming to hospice. She did come to the hospice I work at and lived there for 10 days before she died, which made my recovery very difficult because I had to go back to work in a room really close to where my mom had passed. But there's so many things that went well because of that. The two conversations that I want to share is the day before my mom died, she did choose to die from MAiD. And my parents said similar things. Like my dad's like, well, she's not going to go to heaven now because she chose to have MAiD. And that's deeply personal for me too, is like, I had not been at bedside. I had not seen MAiD. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't like knowing that my mom was going to die Sunday at 10. That anxiety I felt like days before is a pain inside of my soul and my body that I wish no one would ever have to feel. And then the pain of her passing was incredibly physically difficult. So I try not to talk about it because I don't want to trigger everyone else's pain. But it was a pain like no other inside of my physical self. And so it takes time. It does. And then there's moments that you become very sad. But beautiful moments that happen is one day I was leaving the hospice and we're right in the middle of the forest. We have 10 acres and there was 3 deer. And I got a picture and the room where my mom was living was here. And the one deer, I don't know the difference between male and female. The baby deer walked off and then the other deer left. So I used it as like an analogy of like my mom going and my dad and I staying. And it brought me like great comfort. So there's also that other storyline, which isn't our storyline, of like how important nature is and how nature supports us. Like I've seen a chickadee land on someone's shoulder. There's been so many things that have like happened at hospice that don't make sense. I've had a dragonfly fly into our building, fly in, fly out. So I'm able to really dive into that there might be something else going on rather than just the physical sense. And I use words like soul and feelings like this, where I know some people just believe we're a body or whatever that might be. But for me, it felt like I was very supported and cared for in these moments with my mom. And my mom really hadn't been awake prior to her death. And that morning of her death, she said, I promise you I'll be awake. And sure enough, we go there early that morning with my children. And my mom was fully awake and we got to have conversations. And I got to hold space with her when she took that last breath. So yeah, the biggest story I did want to share with you is that, not to give away the cliffhanger, but a week before my mom died, she told me that she'd given my dad a code word that only he would know. And then she was tasking me with finding the code word after her death to bring back to my dad. Yeah.
Seems like a big ask.
It was. And I would say even as someone with like my level of spirituality, I was like, this could end very badly for me. And I felt like an intense amount of pressure to get it right. Like, I'm like, if I get this wrong, like the whole entire spiritual community is like resting on my shoulders. Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And then also for your dad, right? Like, I think too, there's a lot of people's, beliefs are up in the air with that. But I'm curious, it seems that you're here, you're trying to tell a story. So hopefully you got the code word. So tell me, like, why did she even want to do that? Like, why was the purpose of that? Since you already had like a belief, what was her idea?
It was 100% to prove to my dad that she was be with him on the other side.
Oh, because she had the belief that because she was taking MAiD that she wasn't going to be able to.
Well, I don't think it was related to the MAiD. I
No?
think it was
Okay.
more related to like him knowing that she would always be with him because she knew that I knew.
Okay.
So in my mom's passing too, like she was very active in creating her passing. So like she picked the time, she told me what to wear. She told me all of the things she wanted and we wrote a poem together. So her poem was in her obituary So I always said, like, my mom took care of me very much all in life, and allowing her to take care of me even in her death was really important to my mom. Like, she never stopped being a mom. So I think this was also her way of like probably connecting to me as well after her death. So the first experience I had, I was explaining, wasn't necessarily in a dream because I've always kind of been able to channel a little wee bit. I was driving in my car and it had only been like 2 days after my mom's death. And she was kind of like communicating with me. For me, it always comes in this way, like my right side. And she was telling me the word. And I said, Mom, I'm so sad. Like, I don't care what the word is. Like, this isn't the right time. Like, I'm driving my car. Like, you need to stop talking to me. I don't care. Basically, like I was being like a disgruntled channeler. That's the truth. So she gave me the word there and it was consistent. I was at a friend's house and someone who's very clairvoyant, my friend said a word and my friend, Sarah, she's this beautiful soul. She kept saying she wanted to see my mom and my mom had never met Sarah. So she wouldn't let Sarah come visit her at the hospice. But I'm like, my friend Sarah needs to meet you. I have no clue why, but she needs to get to you. So I was at my friend Sarah's house and she said something and she said a word and it just went like through me. And I was like, oh, interesting. It's that word again. And I could really feel it. So it's kind of beautiful because Sarah had that intention that she would deliver something for me by meeting my mom. And she knows that she was a big part of that. And so the first dream that came in, my mom died March 16th of 2024. Her celebration of life was on her birthday, like June 18th. So you got to think, I had March, April, May, and now it's June. And it's the night before my mom's celebration of life. So we were celebrating on her birthday. And I went to bed that night and I was feeling like, since my mom had passed, I was feeling like this anxious, kind of like unsettled, like ungrounded, just like so much grief. You wear so much grief here. And I almost like couldn't get a breath in to me. And I went to bed that night and my mom came to me in a dream and she looked as vivid as you do now in my dream state, but she was like haloed in this yellow light, like all around her. And it was so beautiful. I couldn't necessarily hear what she was saying to me, but I could hear like and feel like I have goosebumps thinking of it. It was so like such a beautiful high vibration experience. I wake up that morning and my other really good friend, Heather, texts me. And she said, I'm really thinking of you. I know it's your mom's celebration of life. How are you feeling? So I text Heather. I'm like, I am feeling like the most deep peace you could ever imagine. But the word peace auto-corrected to the code word. And so in that moment, I knew. I go to my dad's. I go through the motions. I'm like schmoozing, interacting, holding space. And so it ends up being the end of the day. And this is where the story gets better. I'm at the dishes and I'm washing all the dishes in my mom's kitchen in my dad's house. And my mom comes in and she's like, girl, you need to just say the word. So my auntie Shirley was here beside my dad, who's very spiritual. And my dad is with her and I'm scared because like we shared, I'm really worried I'm going to get it wrong. And if I get it wrong, I don't get a second chance. So my mom's like yelling at me, say it, say it, say it. So I turn around, I look my dad in the eye and I just said, Dad, and I'm crying. I said, the code word is pizza. So I turn around, he goes, yeah. And we hug and he's sobbing. I'm sobbing. My auntie's happy, but we were the only 3 people in that space. But I'll have that moment now for the rest of my life. And it was so, so beautiful. So the autocorrect went from deep peace to deep pizza. But if you look at your phone, like those letters aren't even close together. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's a remarkable story and it's a remarkable event to be able to say, you're right, it takes courage because you get one chance to say what that code word is. And so it's so great that it was correct. And it also helps validate, said some of the things that you're experiencing too, because, grief is very difficult and we also need to sort of care for ourselves. So I think it's very interesting, even after that first time you waited. So I thought that was a really interesting part of the story where it's like, wow, even like hearing your mom, you're like, I gotta grieve you still. Like, can you give me some time?
Yeah, I was like, you need to back off. Like, I'm not, and the truth is, like, I think that's a part of it. Like when you're spiritual, it's like you get these gifts or messages, but the timing is everything. You can't say it at the wrong time. Could my dad, in the grief of losing my mom 48 hours of her death, possibly assimilated that in a positive way? I think no. Yeah. And I needed to be certain. I needed to be like certain. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice too. You said you had that dream, and it didn't seem like she said. I'm surprised she didn't say it in the dream. It was like you woke up, and then you had the like kind of the autocorrect. And so when it comes to like that dream of her, like, did you feel like the dream itself was just full of peace? Is it when you woke up, you felt like a change in where
Oh
you
yeah.
were in your grief? Okay.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm gonna tear up. It's like there was the grief piece of me before her death. And then it was like I got my life back. Yeah. It was like really like a switch. Yeah. It was like it's like she took all my pain away. Yeah. It was really a beautiful, beautiful dream. Like I said, like the most high vibration experience of love you could ever imagine.
I think there's something to that vibration, wherever that state is. I feel that is so healing. That's, I think, very similar to how like my dream with my father kind of changed me, where it was like in one state, going to bed for like the last 3 months, and then I had the dream, and then I was changed when I woke up. And it seems like that's very kind of similar to that.
Oh,
And
it
like,
was. It was just like the light was shining on me. And that's why I love the analogy of her being in the light. But I was sharing, like, I know that we met in 2018, and I was sharing that it's so serendipitous because today's Father's Day. And I knew that your grief dream came from something related to your father, but I didn't know the story. Can you share that? Because it sounds like if it was 3 months after and mine was 3 months after, that's very interesting.
yeah, so the story goes like after the funeral, I wanted to get back to school and I wanted to get back to work. And so I just didn't want to, I wanted to stop crying.
Yeah.
And so I basically suppressed it. And all the color came out of the world, the best way to put it. I
Yep.
looked fine, but inside I was not fine at all. That was just sort of the way I was coping. And at that time, I didn't really know how to cope with it. And I didn't know you could have these dreams either. So then I just, it was about 3 months after that moment where I just had this dream where I was in my room and I saw my father at the end of my room and he was looking really healthy and light. He had a lot of like trauma and issues in waking life. And so for me to, I've never seen him in that state before. But so I went up to him and I said, I'm going to miss you, acknowledging the loss. He died very suddenly. And I told him that I loved him and we hugged.
Oh,
And when I remember I woke up and I remember just sitting at the edge of the bed, just thinking like, what was that? Just because I felt the color back, that my emotions were regulating again. It was the wildest thing. I didn't interpret the dream. It had nothing to do with the interpretation. It was the moments in that dream changed me. And there was this peace and this love within the environment of that. To be able to see my father also in a state of peace was very therapeutic, I believe, too. And being able to say goodbye, which I didn't get a chance to do, and that I loved them. And that was one of the big moments for me to also learn the importance of sharing our feelings with others that we care about. So if they do something great or if we love them, we should say it. We shouldn't like hold on to it because you just don't know when that person's going to die, but also may need it in waking life. Like I realize how important it is for me to hear like positive things, but also other people need to hear positive things because life is hard. And if you're holding it back, it just makes their life harder because they're just running on old models of not being good enough or not feeling loved. And you can be a difference in how that, the thinking kind of can sort of
yeah.
go on a different track. And I've learned that along the way. So I really try to share my feelings more and getting more in touch with confidence in sharing your feelings because as a guy, it's like, frowned upon as like a weakness or a vulnerability. And so now it's, I've changed my ways and I'm still learning. But at the end of the day, that dream really helped me through the process of my grief. As you said, it took it away and allowed me to be something different in the world.
Yeah. And I use the example of you bring up so many things that I've learned from those that are dying. There's a grace that they hold that is so remarkably beautiful in their suffering. And when you were talking, I never thought of that. The part I wanted to share is I was holding my mom's hand, just sobbing, knowing I only have like 24 hours left with her. And I utter out the words of, it's awful, but I would keep you like this forever just to hold you. Like that raw truth of like, how messed up is that? Even though you have this awareness of this woman who's had cancer for 6 years, chemotherapy, radiation for over 3 years, she can't walk, she can't get out of bed. My mom's only hope for life was to play crib with my kids. We were very much like about family time. So if an old person wants to play crib with me, I'm a yes. So there's no doubt. And so my son Connor was very, very close with my mom. I also took pictures of my mom, like unwell. And I have pictures of my daughter crying, holding my mom's hand. my son crying, holding my mom's hand. And like the part of it that's etched in my brain is like with MAiD in particular, knowing my mom was going to die, I got really close. And I've always felt as though as a mother, we come into this world never alone because you have your mother. So to hold that space for my mom on her out, I just held her hand and I said, I got you. And looked her in the eye and held that space for her, knowing I'd love her forever. So those are the two I wanted to share, which are deeply personal and so hard. But there was so much that happened in those 10 days. I was documenting everything I could. And the poem that she wrote, I wish I had it memorized, but it's essentially like, I'm with you always. I'm in the sunset. I'm in the sunrise. I'm in the birds. I'm in the trees. I'm always with you. So it's so simple, but I feel that and I see that. And like I said, I'm not really breathing well because there's moments of grief I'll have until the day I die.
Wow. Those are powerful stories and powerful moments. And I'm glad that she had you and her family around her.
I will share, even working in a hospice, I don't believe we have a good space for grief in the workplace. 2 days unpaid, go back. So I really tossed around the idea, like, should I go on a leave? Like, who goes back to where their loved one died and tries to perform? I'm a high performer. As you can tell in my intro, I have several jobs. I really, really struggled in that physical component of grief that I actually chose to do my yoga teacher training 6 days after my mom died because I knew I needed something to carry me through. And like the 11 people plus the instructors in that group really held space for me to heal and grow. But not that many people do that. I was just like, okay, well, okay. My mom's like, you got to go. And I'm like, okay, I got to go. So I went every 3 weeks. And it helped me a lot to get out of my day-to-day, to be at the hospice a little bit less. And I'm like, yeah, I had a manager who's like, yeah, Julie, go. I know you need it. So I got very lucky in that I had distraction. I had something to connect me in that, like you said, life on gray.
I'm actually really curious about the grief in the workplace because you're right, it's a huge issue. Not everyone works at a hospice and has people they care about die there. And so how did you cope with that? Like did you have moments where you had to just cry? Did you have to how did you deal with that? I'm really curious.
Yeah, my coworker, Catherine, we've been together for 9 years. She would probably not love I'm talking about her on a podcast. She could just look at me and know. Yeah. And there was just times, and this could be a whole other podcast. You get triggered too, like by people who complain about their mom. Like, that one still, like, and not everyone gets a good mom. So I get it. But it's kind of like, it's one of those things like you do feel like you, even though my mom was 72, I think it's the platitudes. I'd have some people say like, was your mom young? And I'm like, I'm young. Like, yeah, my mom was young. So it's kind of like not going into that victimhood part of it too. It's like, I never really wanted to be like that, woe is me, and kind of be like, I got the 72 years with my mom. Obviously not because I wasn't born, but I got to hear with my mom, and there's so many other people who didn't. So I really, really tried to reframe hope into gratitude. And I know that I have a super positive optimism, but I needed to get really good at saying I wasn't okay. But you can't dump in a hospice. So even though I wasn't okay, it's not like Jane could help me. I needed to pull myself together because you can't leak that pain when you're holding space for other people's pain. That's the truth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It'd be very difficult in a hospice because everyone's looking to you to support them, right? So it's like, it's hard to have to go back to work in that kind of atmosphere where death is still all around you and then, have to perform. But I'm glad you had other little areas and seems to have other friends too around and family that you're able to share some of those feelings with. But you're right. It's so important to honor those emotions and just having a space to be able to do that.
So if the question is, did I sit myself in my office and just cry it out more than once? Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of the really beautiful things that happened is my dad was like purgy things, like how everyone responds to grief is so different. And like we had 6 years of anticipatory grief. Like we knew at year 2 of her diagnosis, it was going to be terminal because she had denied a surgery that had an 80-20 outcome. So 80% survival, 20% death. So we knew at that point it was never going to go away. It was just going to be kept at bay. So my dad was like purging a lot of things and he came to the hospital and he's like, here's your mom's nightgowns, donate them to someone. So for 1 year, I kept these nightgowns in my office. I went to Costa Rica with my son this year for 17 days and did mission work. And that was the anniversary of my mom's death and celebrated there with him. And I came back and my coworker, Heather, who is an amazing person, I said to her, can you please make something with these? I've held on to them far too long. And she made me comfort pillows, stuffed animals, and now she's making me a lap blanket. So that doesn't sound like a big deal, but keeping those nightgowns in my office for a year was some sort of like dysfunctional thing that I could have went to counseling for. They'd be like, what about those nightgowns, Julie? What about those nightgowns? And I think I could not give them away. There was no way.
And I think we all have different moments like that where there's certain things that we keep, right? And it is it's something to look at when you're ready to help those move on. That means something has changed, over that time to be able to do that. So you're healing in your own way. And at the end of the day, like coming on the podcast too, as I said, like this stuff happened, like a year ago?
Yeah.
Or just, So
I wasn't ready.
Yeah. And so, but that shows to me that something has changed and something beautiful is being moved within you to be able to be here today, to be able to share. So I really want to sort of just say that.
Yeah. And I would say to people, like there are lessons to be learned, and it's like, take the pictures, keep the cards, maybe don't delete all of your voice recordings. There's certain things about a person that really want to be kept. And I live a very inspired life working in hospice. You need to tell people the truth, first of all. You need to be more vulnerable. And I think my takeaway is like a shield doesn't get you through grief. I don't think a shield gets us through anything. Like you hear about that in certain industries, like just put your walls up, and I'm like, walls. Like I think the truth is the vulnerability of like me saying to a coworker, like, I'm not okay. I need you to know I'm not okay. I'm going to go get myself okay. And then I'm going to come back. That's very powerful to have someone who can hold space for you like that. And like, was my decision the right decision? Like, I will never know if I had gone on a leave, had my experience been better. Maybe me going back to work made me recover faster. Like, these are things that I will never know. I don't really look back. I chose to do what I did. I saw it through. And my other thing with my mom's story that I never knew is like, today I get to be with you and you get to tell me your story about your dad. So I really feel like what my mom did was create a conversation piece for me to actually provide even more support and love to people who are worried that there isn't another side. So as much as her gift was for my father and to prove that maybe I'm not crazy, and I am, I am a little bit of a healer archetype. Outside of those two huge things, I feel like my mom actually, just like she did in life with her kindness and her love, has created a ripple that other people can feel, a tangible piece of that love and unconditional love of like, okay, maybe there is another side.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you never know the ripple effects that these moments and the moments that we have can have on others. And so that's powerful. And I'm curious, did you have any other dreams of your mom since that last one? Or was it just that one and that's been, wow.
So one and done.
Wow. And then what about your father? Did he ever have any?
Oof.
Have you asked him?
Not that I haven't. I truly have not asked him.
So maybe this is the ripple effect. Maybe from being out here, ask him and see
it is
what he
Father's
has.
Day.
Yeah.
It is Father's Day, so I can call him and ask him. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let me know.
And I do have a brother, so I know that this gave him great comfort as well. I can share too, like I have been able to share my story with some families at hospice in the last year. And I've had we're a smaller community, about 80,000. So I have had people I know a lot this past year also lose family members that I have closeness to. The one thing I'm really mindful of is that I only share the story with someone who I feel is very open to receiving, because it's the sacredness of it. And I feel like it lands well, like as I'm conversing with you. And it may not land with everyone who watches this podcast, but that's my only protection and sacredness for my mom, is that I only share it with a sacredness and an honored sense because of how personal it is and how vulnerable it is for me.
I like that. Okay. So we're just wrapping up the podcast. So the last question that I like to ask at the end is, if you could have a dream tonight of your mom, what would that dream look like to you?
Oh, well, that's a good one. Cheer me up. Oh, well, oof. That's a really good one. I might not be able to respond. Okay, pull myself together. So the other happy place is when I was 10, my parents built our home on the water. So we live on this beautiful lake. So I was there yesterday. And when I go, I always take a sauna and I always cold plunge, which is new for me. I only started cold plunging after my mother's death, which is also great for resetting the nervous system to see outside of gray. So that's what I mean. I started to hack all these things, but we would always have Sunday dinners together. So typically, if my mom was with us today, I would be with my family, my spouse, my children, my dad, my mom, and we would just be together in family, community, playing card games, eating a beautiful dinner, seeing the sunset, going for a swim. And I'm a runner. So my mom always held space for me. I'd go visit her and I'd be like, Mom, can you watch the kids so I can go for a run? So I would time machine back to one of those moments in my dream.
Oh, that's beautiful. I really hope you have something like that today, and very grateful to hear these stories and to sit with what is in your life. And once again, just thank you so much for being on the podcast and just doing the work that you're doing. Okay, is there any place where people can find you?
Okay, yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. That's for my day job. But Infinite Healing Arts, I do have a website. I am very passionate about helping others in my healing arts. And I do tend to hold a lot of space for individuals that have had grief as well. So Reiki is a whole other long topic, but I teach Reiki, I teach yoga, I teach locally, and I'm down south in Burlington often. I also teach down there and I hold sound bowls. Yeah, so I do a lot of different things. And then the dental hygiene one, that's easy. You just Google me and you can find me. But I don't think anyone needs to find me unless the story resonates with them and they want to share just like you. I like to hold space for people to tell their story. At the end of the day, everyone's story matters. That's important.
I agree. All right. So thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. I wish you the best day today. And I don't know when we'll meet again. So this is our third official meeting. And I wish you all the best. I love that you're holding a forum and a space like this for me to share my story. It means a lot.